Welcome, my friends, to a new episode of English Plus Podcast, and this is the teacher episode. And that means we're going to have a mini series, or a mini course, if you will. And our mini course for this week is the Fresh Start Blueprint. And today we're going to start with day 1. So, welcome to day 1 of the Fresh Start Blueprint. I'm so glad you are here. Honestly, look at us. It's the beginning of the week, the beginning of the year, and we are already trying to be better versions of ourselves. It is exhausting, isn't it? But it is also fascinating. Have you ever noticed how you never really commit to a life-changing diet on a Thursday afternoon? Nobody stands up at their desk at 3 p.m. at a random Thursday and says, "That is it. From this moment on, my body is a temple and I shall consume nothing but kale and dust." No. We wait for Monday. We wait for the first of the month. We wait for New Year's Day. That is exactly what we're digging into today. We're exploring why we do that, how to actually make it work so we don't crash and burn by February, and we're going to learn the specific business English tools to talk about this phenomenon like a pro. Because if you can't describe your success, did it even happen? I'm Danny, and this is a new episode of English Plus Podcast. Let's get into the business concept first. In psychology and behavioral economics, this obsession with specific dates has a name. It is called the Fresh Start Effect. And these dates, Mondays, birthdays, anniversaries, the start of a semester, are called temporal landmarks. Think of them like physical landmarks on a map. If you're driving and you see a giant mountain on a weird-looking statue, it helps you orient yourself in space. Temporal landmarks help us orient ourselves in time. They do something magical to our brains. They separate us from our past selves. It is a psychological disassociation. You look at the you from last year or even the you from last weekend who ate an entire pizza while watching reality TV, and you think, that person? I don't know her. I don't know him. That is the old me. The old me was lazy. The old me was disorganized. But the new me? The new me is a productivity machine who loves spreadsheets and wakes up at 5 a.m. without an alarm. This separation is crucial because it allows us to wipe the slate clean. It gives us a boost of motivation because we feel like any failure that happened before the landmark doesn't count. It belongs to a different person. It is why gyms are absolutely packed in January and empty in March. We ride the wave of new me energy. But here is the trap, and this is where the business strategy comes in. Reliance on the fresh start effect alone is dangerous. It is a sugar rush. It is a burst of energy that burns bright and dies fast. If you are a manager or if you are running a business, you see this all the time. The team comes back in January fired up. They promise to clear the backlog. They promise to organize the file server, which, let's be honest, is never going to happen. And then by week 3, the enthusiasm is gone. The old me creeps back in. So the strategic lesson here is that you have to use the landmark as a trigger, not the fuel. You use the date to initiate the change, like turning the key in the ignition, but you need a different engine to keep the car moving. You need to understand that your trajectory, that is a key word, trajectory, the path you are on, is more important than your current location. The fresh start effect changes your feeling, but systems change your trajectory. Now let's talk about the skill now, the strategic goal setting. And this brings us to our skill for today. If we know that motivation is going to fade, how do we lock in this fresh start? We need to move away from resolutions and move towards strategic goal setting. I hate resolutions. I really do. I want to sell more this year. I want to speak better English. My friends, these are wishes. These are not goals. They are fluffy. In the business world and for your own career growth, you need something with teeth. We're going to borrow a concept from Silicon Valley called OKRs, or Objectives and Key Results. Now, here's the difference. A resolution is, I want to be more persuasive in meetings. Okay, great. Now, how do you know if you did it? Did you wink at someone and they agreed with you? It is too vague. An objective is the what. What do you want to achieve? I want to become a dominant voice in our quarterly strategy meetings. Well, this is the objective. The key results are the how. How do we measure it? Now, key result number 1, speak up within the first 10 minutes of every meeting. Key result number 2, successfully pitch one new initiative that gets approved by quarter 2. Key result number 3, reduce my use of hesitation fillers like and by 50%. Do you see the difference? A resolution is a feeling. An OKR is a contract you sign with yourself. When you use the fresh start effect to set OKRs, you're taking that emotional energy and pouring it into a concrete container. You are giving the new me a job description. Let's apply this to a real-life scenario. Imagine you're working in sales. The old you was afraid of cold calling. You avoided it. You reorganized your desk instead of dialing. The fresh start happens. It is January. You feel brave. Instead of saying, I will try to call more people, you set an OKR. The objective? Build a robust pipeline of qualified leads. Key result number 1, make 20 outbound calls every single morning before checking email. Key result number 2, secure 5 demo meetings per week. Key result number 3, achieve a conversion rate of 10%. Now you have a game plan. When the motivation fades on a rainy Tuesday in February, you don't need to feel like calling. You just look at the key result. It says 20 calls. You do the 20 calls. That is how you professionalize the fresh start. And now let's talk about the language. Because if you're going to implement this, or if you're going to pitch this new version of yourself to your boss or your clients, you need the right words. You cannot sound like a teenager making a wish on a star. You need to sound like a strategist executing a pivot. Now let's look at some power vocabulary we have touched on. First, temporal landmark. Now, use this in a meeting to sound incredibly smart. Instead of saying, let's start fresh on Monday, you say, for example, let's use the quarterly review as a temporal landmark to reset our KPIs. It signals that you understand the psychology of timing. Second, pivot. Well, this is a classic business term, but it is often misused. A pivot isn't just a random change. You don't pivot from being an accountant to being a circus performer. That is a crisis, not a pivot. A pivot is a structured shift in strategy while keeping one foot grounded in what you already know. We are pivoting our marketing strategy to focus more on digital channels. We are not abandoning the old model altogether. It's very important. And third, we have trajectory. This is about direction and velocity. For example, our current trajectory suggests we will miss our quarter 1 targets. It sounds so much more professional than we are going to fail. And now for the grammar. This is my favorite part because it's a little mind-bending. Now, to really harness the fresh start effect in English, you need to master the future perfect tense. Most people use simple future. I will finish the report. But the future perfect is different. You say, I will have finished the report. Now, why does this matter? Because the fresh start effect is about visualization. You are imagining a future where the work is already done. The future perfect tense forces your brain to travel to the future and look back at the completion. If your boss asks about the project, don't just say, I will do it. Say, by Friday, I will have completed the initial audit and sent you the summary. It sounds definitive. It sounds confident. It tells the listener that in your mind, the task is already accomplished. It is a very subtle psychological trick that leaders use all the time. Now listen to the difference. Person A says, we're going to launch the product in June. Person B says, by June, we will have launched the product and captured 5% of the market. Person B sounds like they are in control. Person B sounds like the new me. I know that some people might hate the future perfect or hate the tenses. When we talk about grammar in general, you just hate it. I know that. But when we talk about grammar in context, that changes everything. And believe me, sometimes those boring grammar bits are very powerful weapons for your communication skills in English. So use them. Of course, don't just go and buy a grammar book and just do grammar drills. They're usually useless because you will forget what you worked on, and when it really counts, when you really want to use all these weapons, you'll have no clue which one is the best. But grammar in context can be a very powerful weapon. Now, before I move on to the next part, there's another word I want to talk about, and that's slate, as in clean slate. Now, we use this all the time. We say, let's wipe the slate clean. It comes from old school chalkboards. But in business, be careful with this. You want a clean slate regarding bad habits, but you don't want to lose your institutional knowledge. So you might say, I want to approach this client with a clean slate, but keeping our historical data in mind. So that is about some useful language tips. Now let's talk about some real-life application. So how do we put this all together? I want to tell you about a friend of mine. Well, let's call him Dave. Dave was a chronic procrastinator. Every Monday he had a list of 10 things to do, and every Friday he had done none of them. He was stressed. His boss was annoyed, and he felt terrible. He waited for New Year's. He told me, this is it. I'm going to be productive. I said, Dave, that is a wish. Give me the OKRs. He looked at me like I was crazy, but we sat down. We identified his temporal landmark. January the 2nd, his first day back. We set the objective, reclaim control over the daily workflow. We set the key result. By 10 o'clock a.m. every day, I will have completed the single most difficult task on my list. You notice the future perfect here? It's great, right? I will have completed. The first week was easy. He was high on the fresh start fumes. The second week was hard. The old Dave wanted to check ESPN and get coffee, but he had the system. He had the specific definition of success. And because he was using that future perfect language with his team, by the morning meeting I will have prepared the data, he created social pressure for himself. He couldn't back out. 6 months later, Dave isn't perfect, of course, but his trajectory has changed. He isn't spiraling down, he is inching up. And that is, my friends, what this is all about. So, here's your assignment for day 1. We're not just listening here. You're not just listening to a podcast. Don't make this mistake. We are doing here. We're going to try and do things. I want you to identify your next temporal landmark. Maybe it is tomorrow morning. Maybe it is next Monday. You don't have to wait for next year. And then I want you to write down one objective for your English or your business skills, just one, and attach 2 key results to it. And finally, I want you to write a sentence about that goal using the future perfect tense. You say, for example, by the end of this month, I will have done this, I will have done that. Say it out loud. Feel how different that feels compared to I hope I will. My friends, this is the power of the fresh start. We are hacking our own psychology to build a better future. Tomorrow, we are going to talk about how to introduce this new version of yourself to the world without sounding fake. We are covering the art of reintroduction. You do not want to miss it. So, get your OKRs written down. I will catch you in the next episode. I'm Danny. That was another episode of English Plus Podcast, the teacher episodes of English Plus Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, never stop learning with English Plus Podcast.